All right. So this is my submission for Communications 356. Um, Essentially, my case study is titled Weight Loss Management, Type 2 Diabetics, Obesity, and Celebrities. I just want to preface this is a brief discussion on how celebrity culture affected the drug culture for those with type 2 diabetes and obesity. I want to explain that this is a brief discussion because this is not only a current but ongoing phenomenon. So, the information I'm presenting to you is still a little immature. However, there have been some profound studies that I will cover throughout the PowerPoint to discuss my point and to essentially cover my thesis on how how a weight loss how a drug for those with type 2 diabetes and obesity has become a weight loss tool for celebrities. And in that case, it invokes basically the individualistic um, mentality versus the communal mentality. Okay, so going on to slide two. So you're probably wondering what type 2 diabetes, celebrities, and obesity have in common. Well, if you're not familiar with the background picture, it's basically a drug called Ozempic, but more importantly, its generic name is semaglutide. Sorry, it's a little difficult to pronounce the name sometimes. But most likely, you've probably seen this variant of the semaglutide. Basically, what it is, it's a pen that basically inserts insulin to the user. So essentially, it reduces blood sugar for those that basically have either insulin resistance or they have issues with their pancreas where they cannot regulate their blood sugar, then so leading to issues such as high blood pressure, um, blood sugar issues, and weirdly enough, weight gain as well. So most likely, this is probably where we've all seen this drug before. Either you've probably seen a ton of TV or you've probably been scouring over the internet, but most likely you've probably seen this ad. It's fairly catchy. It has multiple renditions of itself, but most likely this is probably the commercial you've probably seen. Oops. Okay, so essentially the commercial it basically starts off as Ozempic, and it basically discusses how Ozempic is a drug to help treat type 2 diabetes and obesity. And if you watch the video, it basically goes into how it how it is able to lower blood sugar for those that have issues with it, which is mostly those that are type 2 diabetics and those with diabetes. And then, as a small little hint, it kind of announces that it also helps with weight gain loss. And that's very important and such a small detail in the commercial that should be playing, that it basically kind of sparks this trend with among celebrities and also basically just that culture itself where uh, where basically Hollywood is looking at this drug and using it their own personal for their own personal gain. Essentially, what they're doing is they're using diabetic medication to help them lose weight because, um, crazy enough, it has been shown that it's been successful for people losing weight. However, there are drawbacks, as the commercial mentions. There are a ton of side effects such as nausea, diarrhea, and a few more complicated issues. However, people in Hollywood are still going out of their way to acquire this drug and basically use it to lose weight. And such a ridiculous it's such a ridiculous concept um, because not only is the drug set out for those that have those that have diabetes and those for those people that are suffering from obesity, but they're essentially getting the drug itself is getting endorsed by celebrities and essentially make it seem that it's a safe alternative to lose weight and basically build the person that you want to be. And unfortunately, a lot of that endorsement has a lot of negative social impact. And not only that, the market itself didn't anticipate such an endorsement, meaning that when the creators of semaglutide, or essentially Ozempic, or the other variants, they weren't expecting such a huge demand. And because of that demand, it's led to a lot of negative impacts. One being that the supply for the drug itself has been hugely scarce, and because of that, it's only been available for those that can afford the medication. Because, as many might know, in theory, when there is a high demand and there is a low supply, typically what that means for the price point for an item, it usually means that it will raise the price of the item uh, to the point where the market feels that it can reach equilibrium. And what that means is not many that means is many people aren't able to the people that need to afford the products aren't going to be able to afford it due to lack of supply and also just high prices as well. I so in the so in this chart that I have to the right of the slide, it basically notes that the price for these injection pens, whether it be Ozempic or Ribelsus or Wegovy, which is actually all products under the same company, under the same manufacturer. Um, they have a price point of essentially $936 for a month's worth of injections, and these injections are essentially a one per week use. So essentially, you're paying $936 or close to $900 for basically for 4 pence per month. So it's ridiculous because these prices are only this high in the U.S. and it's ridiculous because um, only in high income countries like the U.S. can we really afford healthcare at this point. But the only people that can truly afford healthcare or let's say health products are those that have money, those that some might deem as the elite. But in the nature of this presentation, um, we will call those elite the celebrities. So because the celebrities can afford such high prices, it really leaves a huge struggle for those that can't. And usually those that can't are those that are usually affording their health care through either an employer or through out of pocket or through other health insurances. However, because of this increased use of these injection pens, uh, many employers, many health insurances are opting out of either paying full price or even considering diabetes and obesity to be deemed as a life threatening or a disease essentially, just so they can opt out of paying these high prices and having to really assist their employees in basically providing them with health care. And it's crazy because if even if health insurance uh, do even if health insurances try and assist uh, their customers with payment of these injection pens, their copay the patient's copays are still extremely ridiculously priced, and they suffer because a lot of the time, even with the copay, they choose not to afford these injection pens just because it just means that there's a sacrifice. And although this is phenomenal, although there is a lot of coverage in there is a lot of coverage in what this phenomenon is doing to to the health system. Prices still haven't gone down. Supplies still haven't been increased, and people are still suffering. And the people that are suffering are basically the community that sits under the umbrella of type 2 diabetics, or people with blood sugar problems, or those with obesity. And unfortunately, it's terrible because if celebrities chose to not endorse or to not speak out on basically these injection pens, they could potentially save a potential they could save potentially a ton of lives. And but instead of doing that, they're choosing to act on their own individualistic ideals and basically use these injection pens in an off-label use, just to help their image, just to help uh, their mentality about who they are. And it's unfortunately it's terrible because there's a community at large that's hurting. 33% of the United States is obese, and 40% of those in the US have some form of diabetes. And it's ridiculous because not only is healthcare itself expensive in the US, but to have such a widely needed drug be priced at such a high price point, it's ridiculous because people are being hurt because they just can't afford this due to celebrity endorsement, Hollywood culture. What also is basically hurting the community at large as well because of this celebrity endorsement is um, it's pushing these communities to essentially search for alternatives. However, there aren't many alternatives because the three drugs that I mentioned in the chart before, which the chart was provided by National Health Tracker, um, basically those three drugs are the only drugs that are FDA approved, and there aren't any other injection pens or semaglutide pens that basically are approved by the FDA. So this basically leads to patients looking for alternatives, and a lot of these alternatives are them mixing combinations of semaglutides. And unfortunately, some are undergoing these radical protocols. However, it's highly inadvised by the FDA because there are a ton of complications. However, because of price, demand, supply, and all these other factors, these patients do too much because of money essentially, and because of you know off-label use from Hollywood and celebrities. And basically it's terrible because it's just enforcing that the needs of a few sometimes will outmatch the needs of many. It's terrible, and there's a lot of it has to do with like a power dynamic where money essentially is the greatest separator when it comes to resources. You know, here here are a couple quotes that I've pulled from NPR and Health.com that basically speak on the shortage of these diabetic drugs. Um, One saying that what's frustrating about obesity medicine resistance for patients with weight loss is that a lot of these FDA approved medications are not necessarily covered by insurance. And it should be because there's an under recognition for obesity as a chronic disease and how that might affect other chronic diseases, such as hypertension or diabetes or other cardiovascular disease. Basically, saying that, not many people are caring because diabetes or obesity isn't seen as a disease. It's undermined and it's basically not seen as anything close to maybe something as as serious as something else as serious as cancer. Um, Another quote that I found pretty interesting was that the demand for the drugs has skyrocketed. Dr. Shaw added that some people also have been seeking out compounded semaglutide. This is me basically. This is when I mentioned that people are mixing two different types of medicines just to essentially get the same potency that they would normally get from their normal dosage from their normal medicine. And some experts are referring to it as a bootleg version of the true drug, mixing it with other ingredients, which could affect its safety and effectiveness. It's for this reason compounded semaglutide is not FDA approved and is typically recommended against. So, just to conclude, um, this matter is pretty serious, and there's a lot of culture clashing. Mainly, I would like to say that it has to do with the power dynamic of the elite and those that and the larger community at large, the community at large, which in this case happens to be type 2 diabetics and those with obesity and problems with blood sugar and weight loss. And the power dynamic is basically money, which is the greatest separator. Basically, having the resources to, afford this drug and putting the community at large at risk because of individual benefit. And unfortunately, this has been seen time and time after again. But unfortunately, it's terrible to see that this is concurrent and this is still going on today. There really hasn't been an answer to the shortage. Supplies haven't been increased and prices haven't gone down. And unfortunately, it's an ongoing issue. However, I do see that there will be. I have seen precedents in issues like this, so I do see some positive outcome in this. However, unfortunately, this is the situation at large, and it's unfortunate to see something like this. I just want to say thank you for having me have this presentation and being able to showcase a side of the community that I find to be very personal to me. Thank you once again, and I hope that you got a lot out of it, and I hope I was able to, bring some light to the situation that maybe you haven't been, or maybe people haven't been able to really put their eyes on. Thank you.